Did you hear what I was playing, Lane?
I didn't think it's polite to listen, sir.
Oh, well, I'm sorry for that. For your sake. You see, I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately. Rather, I play with a wonderful expression.
Yes, sir.
As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep silence for life.
Yes, sir.
Oh, and speaking of science of life, have you got those cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Ah, thank you. Oh, by the way, Glenn, I see that from your book on Thursday night, Lord Shorman and Mr. Worthing were dining with me. 8 bottles of champagne are rated as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it at a bachelor's establishment the servants invariably drink the champagne?
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have observed that in many married households the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Oh, good heavens! Is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I myself have very little experience of it up until the present, and it was a consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
Lane, I don't know that I'm much interested in your family life.
No, sir, it's not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders don't set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? They seem, as a class, to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
Ah, my dear Earnest, how are you? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. Which should bring one anywhere.
Yes.
Eating as usual, I see, Algie.
Well, I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at about 5 o'clock.
Yes.
Now, where have you been since Thursday?
In the country.
Really? What on earth do you do there?
Well, when one is in the country, one amuses other people. And when one is in town, one amuses oneself.
Really? And who are these other people that you amuse?
Neighbors. Neighbors.
Ah, you have nice neighbors your part, Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. I've never spoken to one of them.
Well, how immensely you must amuse them. Oh, by the way, Shropshire is your country, is it not?
Shropshire?
Yes.
Of course it is, of course it is. Oh, hello. Why all these fancy cups and cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance for one so young? Who's coming for tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta. Oh, and Gwendolyn.
Oh, how perfectly delightful.
Yes. But I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
Well, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It is almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
But I'm in love with Gwendolyn. I've come up to town expressly to propose to her.
But I thought you said you had come up for pleasure. You see, I call that business.
That's the unromantic you are.
Well, I don't see anything romantic about proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there's nothing romantic about a definite proposal. You see, one may accept, and one usually does, I believe, but then the excitement is all over. You see, the very essence of romance is uncertainty. And if I ever get married, I'll certainly try to forget the fact myself.
I have no doubt about that, dear Archie. You see, the divorce court was specially designed for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
There is no use speculating on that subject. Divorces were made in heaven. Please, don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They were ordered especially for Aunt Augusta.
But you've been eating them this whole time.
This is quite a different matter. She is my aunt. Your aunt. Have some bread and butter. Yes. You see, the bread and butter is for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is devoted to bread and butter.
Very good bread and butter it is too.
Well, my dear fellow, you need not eat as if you were going to eat at all. Behave as if you were married to her already. You are not married to her already. Then I don't think you ever will be.
May I ask why?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry women if love. Girls don't think it right.
Oh, that's nonsense.
No, it isn't. And in the second place, you see, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, she is my first cousin. And before I allow you to marry her, you will have to clear up the whole question of Cecily. Cecily? Yes.
I don't know your other name, Cecily. What on earth do you mean by Cecily? Algie?
Bring me that cigarette case that Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room the last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Do you mean to say you've had my cigarette case this whole time? Oh, I wish to goodness you'd let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. Very nearly offering a large reward too.
Oh, well, I do wish you would offer one. As you can see, I happen to be, well, more than usually hard up.
There's no point in offering a large reward now that the thing has been found.
This is rather selfish of you, Ernest, I must say. However, it makes no matter. For now that I look at the inscription inside, I find the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it is mine. You've seen me with it 100 times. And you have no right whatsoever to read what's written inside. It's a very ungentlemanly thing to read one's private cigarette case.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case, is it? This cigarette case is a gift from someone of the name of Cecily. And you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you must know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes. Charming old lady she is too. Lives in Tunbridge Wells.
Yes, but if Cecily is your aunt who lives in Tunbridge Wells, why does she call herself Little? From little Cecily, with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall and some aunts not tall. Surely that is a matter an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt is exactly like your aunt. It's absurd. For heaven's sake, give me back my cigarette case.
Yes, but why does your aunt call you her uncle? From little Cecily, with her fondest love, to dear Uncle Jack. There is no denying, I must admit, to an aunt being spoiled, but why an aunt, no matter what size she may be, should call her own nephew her uncle, I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all. It is Earnest. Yes.
It isn't Ernest. It's Jack.
But you have always told me that it was Earnest. I mean, I have introduced you to everybody everybody as Earnest, yes. I mean, you even answer to the name of Ernest. It is perfectly absurd you're saying that your name isn't Ernest. It's on one of your cards. Here. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany. I shall keep this as proof that your name is Ernest, if ever you attempt to deny it to me, or to Gwendolyn, or anyone else.
Well, if you must know, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country. And that cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that doesn't account for the fact that your aunt calls you her uncle. Come, old boy, you had much better have the thing out at once.
You talk exactly as if you were a dentist. It's very vulgar to talk as if one was a dentist. It produces false impressions.
Well, that's exactly what dentists always do. Now, go on, tell me everything. Oh, and I might add, I've always suspected you of being confirmed in secret bunburst. Yes.
Bunburst? What on earth is a bunburst?
I shall reveal the meaning of that incomparable expression to you as soon as you are kind enough to tell me why you were Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now, please go on and pray. Make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there's nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. You see, the late Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was just a wee boy, made me, in his will, guardian of Miss Cecily Cardew. Now, Cecily, who addresses me as uncle, from motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate, lives in my place in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Yes, and where is that place in the country, by the way?
Well, there's nothing to you, dear boy. You won't be invited. And may I say quite candidly that the place is not in Shropshire.
Oh yes, I suspected that. I've bunburyed all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Yes. Now, go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, I don't know if you'll be able to understand my real motives or not. You see, when one is placed as guardian, one has adopted a very high moral tone on all subjects. It is simply one's duty to do so. It is a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce to either one's health or happiness. In order to get into town, I have developed a brother of the name Earnest, who gets into the most dreadful of scrapes. That, my dear friend, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were either. And modern literature, complete impossibility.
That wouldn't at all be a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not my forte, my dear fellow. Don't try it. You should leave that to people who haven't been at a university. They seem to do it so well in the daily papers. What you really are is a bunburst. Yes, I was quite right in saying that you are a bunburst. Why? You are one of the most advanced bunbursts I know.
Bunburst? What do you mean there's a bunburst, dear Algie?
See, you have invented a very useful younger brother by the name of Earnest, in order that you may be able to come up to town as often as you'd like. I have invented a perfectly invaluable permanent invalid by the name of Bunbury. Now, Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it wasn't for his extraordinary bad health, for example, I wouldn't be able to dine with you at Willis's tonight, for I've been incredibly engaged with Aunt Augusta for more than a week now.
But I haven't asked you to dine with me anyway tonight.
Oh, I know. You are absurdly careless about handing out invitations. I think it's rather foolish. Nothing annoys one so much so than not receiving invitations. Yes.
Yeah, you'd much rather dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the smallest intentions of doing anything of the kind. To begin with, I last dined there on Monday, and once a week is quite enough to dine with one's own relations. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I'm always treated as a member of the family, and either sat down with no woman at all, or two. Now, in the third place, I know perfectly well whom she shall place me next to tonight. She's going to place me next to Mary Farquhar. Mary is always flirting with her own husband from across the dinner table. It is not very pleasant. Indeed, it is not even decent. And that sort of thing is enormously on the increase. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It is simply washing one's clean linen in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a bunburist, I naturally want to talk to you about bunburing. I want to tell you the rules.
Look, I am not a bunburist. In any case, I'm going to get rid of my brother Ernest once Gwendolyn accepts him. Actually, I think I'm going to get rid of him anyways. You see, Cecily's become much too rather interested in him. So I'm going to get rid of him, and I suggest you do the same with your invalid friend with the absurd name.
Nothing shall induce me to part with Bunbury, and if you ever get married, which seems to me extremely problematic, you will be very glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury is a very tedious time of it. Yes.
If I married Gwendolyn, she's the only girl that I see that I would ever marry, I most certainly wouldn't want to know Bunbury.
Well, then your wife will. You see, what you don't seem to understand is that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none.
That, my dear friend, is the theory that corrupt Prince Dram has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and that the happy English home is proved in half the time.
For heaven's sake, don't be cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
It isn't perfectly easy to be anything nowadays. There's so much beastly competition about. That must be Aunt Augusta. You see, only relatives and creditors ever ring in that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I manage to get Aunt Augusta out of the room for 10 minutes, so that you may have the opportunity to propose to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you, Ulysses, tonight?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Well, yes. Oh, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who aren't serious about meals. It is so shallow.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you have been behaving very well.
Yes, Aunt Augusta, I've been feeling very well.
That is not quite the same thing. In fact, they rarely go together.
Dear me, Gwendolyn, you do look so very smart.
I am always smart. Aren't I, Mr. Worthing?
Oh, you're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I am not that. That would leave absolutely no room for development. And I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if we're a little late, Algernon. I was obliged to call on dear Lady Cole. I have not been there since her poor husband's death. I've never seen a woman so altered. She seems quite 20 years younger. And now I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta. You'll take a seat, I have some tea and cucumber sandwiches. Yes. Lane! Why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially for Aunt Augusta.
There were no cucumbers at the market, sir. I checked twice.
No cucumbers?
No, not even for ready money.
That will do, lady. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I am terribly sorry, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumber sandwiches.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some comforts from Lady Harbury, who seems to be living entirely for pleasure now.
Ah, yes. I hear her hair has turned rather gold from grief.
It certainly has changed its color. From what cause, I of course cannot say.
Indeed.
I've got a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to take you down with Mary Farquhar. She is such a nice woman, and so attentive to her husband. It is delightful to watch them.
Ah, yes, about that. I am afraid I'm going to have to give up the pleasure of dining with you after all.
I hope not, Algernon. If you put my table completely up, your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he is accustomed to that.
Well, you see, the fact is, I have just received a telegram from the doctors saying that my poor friend Bunbury is ill again. They seem to think that I should be with him.
It is very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I think it is high time, whether he made up his mind whether to live or die. This shilly-shallying of the question is absurd. Nor do I in any way approve of the modern sympathy of invalids. I consider it morbid. Health is the primary duty of life. I'm always telling that to your poor uncle, but he never seems to take much notice as far as any improvement in his ailment goes. I would be obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury to be kind enough to not have a relapse on Saturday. I rely on you to choose my music. It is my last reception, and one something that encourages conversation, particularly at the end of the season, when everyone has practically said whatever they had to say, which in most cases was probably not much.
Yes, well, I think that I can assure you that Bunbury will be quite all right on Saturday, yes. The music, on the other hand, is an entirely different matter. When one produces good music, people don't talk. And when one produces bad music, people don't listen. But I shall go over the scripts that I have drawn out, if you will kindly step with me into the next room for a minute.
Thank you, Algernon. That is very kind of you. I'm sure the program will be delightful after a few expurgations. French songs I cannot possibly allow. People always seem to find them improper, and either look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. But German seems a thoroughly respectable language, and indeed, I believe it so. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me?
Certainly, Mamma.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray, don't speak to me about the weather. Whenever anybody speaks to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else. And it makes me so nervous.
Oh, but I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
And I'd like to be allowed to take Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room, which I have often had to speak to her about.
Oh, Gwendolyn. Ever since I've met you, I've admired you more than any other girl that I have met since I met you.
I am quite aware of the fact, Mr. Worthing, and I often wish that in public at any rate you had been more
demonstrated. For me, you always had an irresistible fascination. And even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines and has reached the provincial pulpits, I am told. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. There is something in the name that inspires absolute confidence. Ever since my cousin mentioned to me that he had a friend called Ernest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me?
Passionately.
Oh, darling. You don't mean to say you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Earnest?
But your name is Ernest.
Yes. Suppose it was something else. You mean to say you couldn't love me then?
Ah, that is clearly a metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculations, has no reference to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Well, I don't much care for the name Earnest. I think it doesn't suit me at all.
Oh, but it suits you perfectly. It has a music of its own. It produces vibration.
Well. I think there are much nicer names. Take Jack, for instance. It's a charming.
Jack? There is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all indeed. It does not inspire. It produces absolutely no vibrations. And I know several Jacks, and they all, without exception, were more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man named John. She probably doesn't know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. No. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Well then, Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There's no time to lose.
Married, Mr. Worthing!
Well, you know that I love you. And you, Miss Fairfax, have led me to believe that you aren't too indifferent.
I adore you, Mr. Worthing. But you have not proposed to me yet. We have not discussed marriage. The subject has not even been touched upon.
May I propose to you now?
I would say quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Oh, well.
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what is it you have to say to me?
But you know what I have to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Ah, have a seat. Welcome. Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Oh, of course I will, my darling. How long you've been about it. I'm afraid you've had very little practice in how to propose.
My own. You're the only one I've ever loved.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. What beautiful blue eyes you have, darling. They are quite blue. I hope you will always look at me the way you are looking at me now. Especially when there are people present. Mr. Worthing! Rise, sir, from that semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous. Mamma! I must beg you to retire at once. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing has not quite finished.
Finished what, may I ask?
Mr.
but no, I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men. Although I have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton. We work together, in fact. However, I'm quite ready to answer to any of your answers as if they are what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I admit, I smoke.
I don't mean to care. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London, as it is. How old are you?
I'm 28. No, I mean 29.
A very good age to be married at. I've always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
Nothing, Lady Bracknell?
I am pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with modern ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it, and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England at any rate, it produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would be a serious danger to the upper classes, and probably lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investment?
The investment's chiefly.
That is satisfactory. What of the duties expected of one in one's lifetime, and of the duties exacted of one after one's death? Land ceases to be either a profit or a pleasure. It gives one position, but prevents one from keeping it up. That is all that can be said about land.
I have a country house, with some land attached to it, of course. Around 1,500 acres. But I don't depend on that for my real income. No. As far as I can make out, the poachers are the only ones who make anything of it.
A country house?
Yes.
How many bedrooms? Well, that fact can be cleared up afterwards. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a sweet, unspoiled nature like Gwendolyn could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
Yes. I own a house in Belgrave Square, but it is led to the Lady Bloxham. I can get it back to them at around 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham? I do not know her.
She goes about very little. She's a lady considerably advanced in years.
Well, nowadays there is no guarantee of respectability of capital. What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I knew there was something. However, we can soon alter that.
The fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary, I presume. What are your politics?
I have none. I'm a liberal unionist.
Ah, they count as Tories. They dine with us, or come in the evenings at any rate. Now to minor matters. Are both your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
Both? To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, could be seen as misfortune. To lose both seems like carelessness. Your father, he was evidently a man of some rank. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce, or did he rise from the ranks of aristocracy?
You see, Lady Bracknell, my parents had lost me. I don't know who I am by birth. See, I was found.
Found!
Yes. The late Mr. Thomas Cardew found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket of Worthing at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It's a seaside resort.
And where did this charitable gentleman with the first-class ticket to this seaside resort. Find you
A handbag.
handbag.
Isn't it, Bracknell? A handbag. A somewhat large, brown leather handbag with handles attached to it. It was an ordinary handbag, in fact.
And really, this Mr. James or Thomas called you. Find this ordinary handbag.
The cloakroom of Victoria Station.
The cloakroom.
There's the bright line.
The line is immaterial, Mr. Wilde. I confess, I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be bold, or at any rate, brave, in a handbag. Whether it had handles or not, seems to me to show contempt for the ordinary decencies of family. They remind one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. And I presume you know what that unfortunate event led to. As for the particular locality in which the handbag was found, a cloakroom at a railway station may serve to conceal a social indiscretion. Has probably, indeed, been used for that purpose before now. But it could hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized position in good society.
Then what do you suggest I do, Lady Bracknell? I need hardly to say that I would do anything to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Wilde, to acquire some relations as soon as possible. And to produce one pair of either sex before the season is quite over.
Well, I don't see how I could possibly do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It's my whole dressing room. I think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it got to do with me? You could hardly imagine that I, or Lord Bracknell, would allow our only daughter, a girl brought up with utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Wilde.
Good morning! Parcel? Algie! Don't play that ghastly tune! How idiotic you are! Well, what's wrong, old boy? You don't mean to say that it didn't go off all right. Gwendolyn refused you, didn't she? I know it is a way she has. I think it is mostly ill-natured of her.
Gwendolyn is right as the trivia. As far as she's concerned, we're engaged. Her mother. I've never met such a gorgon. I don't know what a gorgon is, but I'm pretty sure she is one. In fact, she's a monster, without being a myth at all. I beg your pardon, Algie. I shouldn't talk that way before you about your own relatives.
Yes. Well, my dear fellow, hearing my relations abused is the only reason I put up with them at all. You see, relations to me are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't the remotest knowledge on how to live, nor the smallest instinct on when to die.
That is nonsense.
No, it isn't. Please.
Well, I won't argue about that. You always argue about something.
Well, that's exactly what things were originally made for.
By my word, if I thought that, I'd shoot myself. You don't think there's any chance of Gwendolyn becoming like her mother in about 150 years? Do you?
Women always end up like their mothers. That's their tragedy. Men never do. And that is theirs.
Is that clever?
Yes, it is perfectly phrased. And quite as true as any modern civilized observation should be.
Well, I'm sick to death of cleverness. You can't go about London without meeting clever people. The thing has become an absolute public nuisance. I wish to goodness we had a few fools there.
We have.
Oh, really? Yeah. I'd most like to meet them. What do they talk about?
Fools?
Yes.
Oh, about the clever people, of course.
What fools?
Oh. Did you ever get to telling Gwendolyn the truth about your being Earnest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear sir, the truth isn't the sort of thing one should just blurt out to a sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you about have a way to treat a woman.
The only way to treat a woman is to make love to her if she is pretty, and to somebody else she is plain.
That is absurd.
It really isn't. Besides, what about your brother? What about the profligate Earnest?
By the end of the week I shall get rid of him. I shall say he was carried quite suddenly off by apoplexy. Many people get carried off by apoplexy. Quite suddenly. Don't they?
Well, yes, but it's really hereditary. It's the sort of thing that runs in families. Yes. You had much better say a severe chill.
And you're sure severe chill isn't hereditary?
Well, of course it isn't.
All right. I shall say he was carried quite suddenly off in Paris by a severe chill. That gets rid of him?
Yes, but I thought you said that Cecily was quite fond of your poor brother Ernest. Yes. Won't she feel his loss a great deal?
Oh, of course not. She's not a silly romantic. In fact, she has quite a capital appetite. You see, she goes on long walks and pays no attention to her German lessons and things of that sort.
You know, I'd much rather like to meet this Cecily. Yeah.
I'll take great care that you never do. She's excessively pretty and only just 18. Oh.
Are you telling me that you haven't told Gwendolyn that you have an excessively pretty ward who is only just 18?
One just doesn't blurt these things out.
Uh-huh.
In fact, Gwendolyn and Cecily are bound to be great friends. I bet you after half an hour of meeting each other, they'll be calling each other sisters.
Women call each other a lot of other things before they call each other that. Now, did you know it is already nearly 7?
Oh, it's always nearly 7.
Yes, well, I'm hungry.
Then you really weren't.
Now, if we have to get a good table at Willis's, we'd better leave at once. But what shall we do afterwards? What say we go to the theatre?
No, I loathe listening.
Okay. What say we go to the club? Yes.
I hate talking. So,
All right. Well then, how about we take a trot around the Empire, say, at 10?
no, it's so silly to trot around. It's boring.
Well, then what shall we do?
Nothing.
But it's just awfully hard work doing nothing. Although, I don't really mind the idea of hard work where there's no definite object of any kind.
Miss Fairfax!
Gwendolyn, upon my word!
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Oh, no, Gwendolyn, you see, I don't think I can allow this at all.
Algie, you always take a strictly immoral attitude towards life. You are not quite old enough to do that. Ernest, we may never be married. From the look on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard Whatever influence I had over Mamma, I lost at the age of 3. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, I may marry another and marry often. There is nothing she can ever do that will quench my eternal devotion to you. The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma, with unpleasant comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination, and the simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Wilde, Hertfordshire.
There is good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily. How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Algie,
Yes.
you may turn around
Well, thanks, I have already.
now. You may also ring the bell.
I also ring the bell.
You would lend you to a carriage?
Certainly.
I'll see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
Ah, thank you. Let's see. It's in the bank. It's in my neighbor. I don't even know where that one's from. Oh well. Lynn, I think I'll have a glass of sherry, please. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Lynn, tomorrow I'm going wandering. Yes.
Yes, sir.
I don't think I shall be back until Monday morning, so you may pack a week's worth of clothes, my smoking jacket, and all of my Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
Lynn, I hope tomorrow shall be a fantastic day.
It never is, sir.
Lynn, you are the perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, sir.
Ah, there's a sweet, intellectual girl. The only girl that I see that I would ever marry.
Yeah.
What on earth do you use that?
Oh, nothing. I'm just worried about poor old Bunbury. Yes, that is all.
If you don't take care, your poor friend Bunbury's going to get you into a dreadful scrape one day.
But I do love scrapes. They're the only things that aren't serious.
Oh, that is nonsense, Algie. You're always talking nothing but nonsense.
No one ever does. Now, to Willis's, shall we?
Cecily! Surely such a utilitarian occupation as the watering of flowers is rather more instituted than yours. Especially at a moment when intellectual pleasures await you. Your German grammar is on the table. Press open to page 15. We will repeat yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. In fact, I know perfectly well that I am quite plain after a German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is, that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German when he was leaving for town yesterday. Indeed, he always lays particular stress on your German when he's leaving your town?
Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he is so serious that I do not believe he can be quite real.
Your guardian enjoys the best of health, and his gravity of demeanour is especially to be commended in one so comparatively young as he is. I know no one who has a high sense of duty and responsibility.
So that one often looks a little bored when we three are together.
Child, I am surprised at you. Your guardian has many troubles in his life. Idle merriment and triviality would be out of place in his conversation. And you must remember his constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here more often. He might have a good influence over him in this prison. I am sure you certainly would. You know that geology and geography and German and things of that kind influence a man greatly.
I don't think that even I could have any effect on a character that, according to his own brother's admission, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. Indeed, I am not sure I would desire to reclaim him. I am not in favor of this modern mania of turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so let him reap. You must put away your diary, Cecily. I do not see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter all of the wonderful secrets of my life. If I did not write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary we all carry about with us.
Yes, but it usually chronicles things that haven't happened, and that couldn't possibly have happened. I believe memory is responsible for nearly all 3-volume novels that Moody sends us.
Do not speak slightingly of the 3-volume novel, Cecily. I wrote one myself in younger days.
Did you really, Miss Prison? How wonderfully clever you are! And did it end happily? Oh, I hope it did not end happily. Novels that end happily depress me so much.
The good ending happily, and the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means.
I suppose so. But it seems so very unfair, doesn't it? And were those novels ever published, Miss Prison?
Alas, no. The manuscript was unfortunately abandoned. I mean that in the sense of lost or mislaid. To your work, child, these speculations are profitless.
But I see dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Dr. Chasuble, it is indeed a pleasure.
How are we today, Miss Prison? You are, I trust, very well.
Oh no, Miss Prison was just complaining of a slight headache. I think a short stroll with you through the park, Dr. Chasuble, would do her so much good.
Cecily, I have said nothing about a headache.
Oh no, I felt so instinctively. In fact, I was thinking about that and not my German lesson when the rector came in.
Cecily, I hope you're not being inattentive.
I'm afraid I am.
Oh, that is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prison's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I speak metaphorically, of course. My metaphor was drawn from bees. Bees, drawn from bees, yes. Mr. Worthing isn't around, is he?
We did not expect Mr. Worthing till Monday afternoon.
Right. He does like to spend his Sundays in London. He's not one of those whose sole aim in life is pleasure, as by all accounts that unfortunate young man his brother seems to be. Well, I shall not disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer. Good day.
Egeria, Doctor. My name is Letitia.
illusion merely, drawn from the pagan orders. I shall see you no doubt at evensong.
Doctor! I find I have a headache after all. And a walk in the park with you might do it some good.
Certainly, Miss Prism. We might go as far as the schools and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The text on the fall of the rupee you may omit. It is somewhat too sensational. Even these metallic problems have their melodramatic side.
Political economy. Horrid geography and horrid German. Ugh.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He's brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany W. Uncle Jack's brother. Does he know Mr. Worthing is in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned you and Miss Prism were in the garden. He seemed very anxious to speak to you privately for a moment.
Pray ask the young man to come here. I suppose you had better organize a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I've never met a truly wicked person before. I am so afraid he will look just like everyone else.
Oh, he does.
Oh, my little cousin Cecily, I'm quite sure of him.
I am afraid you are under some misconception. I am not little. In fact, I am more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily. I see from your card that you are my cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, no, I am not really wicked at all, Cecily. You mustn't think that I'm wicked.
Well, if you're not wicked, then you have certainly been deceiving us all in a most inexcusable manner. I hope you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked this whole time and being truly good. That would be hypocrisy.
Oh, well, I have been rather reckless.
I am glad to hear it.
In fact, now that you mention it, I have been very bad in my own small way.
I do not think you should be proud of that. But I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
Yes, but it was much pleasanter being here with you, hasn't Cecily?
But I do not understand how you are here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back until Monday.
Ah. That is very disappointing. You see, I am obliged to take the first train Monday morning. I have a business appointment in London that I am anxious to miss.
Oh, couldn't you miss anywhere but London?
Oh, no, the business appointment is in London.
Well, I, of course, know how important it is not to keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life. But still, I think you had better wait until Uncle Jack comes home. I'm sure he is anxious to speak to you about your emigrating.
About my what now?
Your emigrating. Uncle has gone up now to buy your outfit.
Jack, buy my outfit? No. He has no taste in neckties at all.
I do not think you'll be requiring neckties where Uncle is sending you. You see, Uncle is sending you to Australia.
Australia?
Well, yes. You see, at dinner on Wednesday night, Uncle said you could choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Yes. Well, the accounts I have received on the next world and Australia are not particularly encouraging. Yes, this world is good enough for me. Yes.
Yes. But are you good enough for it?
No, actually I'm not. But that is why I wanted to see you. I was hoping that you would reform me, Cousin Cecily, yes. You might make that your mission.
I'm afraid I've no time this afternoon.
Well, then would you mind me reforming myself?
That is rather quick starting with you. But I think you must try.
I will, thank you. Yes, I feel better already.
You're looking a little worse.
Oh, that is because I'm hungry, yes.
How thoughtless of me! I should have remembered that when his wife is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Please, won't you come inside?
Yes. But before we do, might I have a buttonhole first? Yes. You see, I never have an appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
Of course. American meal?
Oh no, I'd much sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Because, Cousin Cecily, you are like a pink rose.
It cannot be right for you to say such things to me. This Prism never says such things to me.
Well, then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the most beautiful-looking girl I've ever seen in my whole life.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
They are a snare that every sensible man would like to get caught in.
I don't think I should like to meet a sensible man. I wouldn't know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, Dr. Charitable. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand. A womanthrope, never.
I do not deserve so neologistic a phrase in prison. You see, the practice, as well as the precept of the primitive church, was distinctly against matrimony.
Well, that is obviously the reason why the primitive church has not lasted up to the modern day. And you do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
You mean to say that married men are not attracted to other women?
No married man is ever attractive, except to his wife.
And I've been told not even to her.
Well, that depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can be depended on. Ripeness can be trusted. Young women are green. I speak horticulturally, of course. My metaphor was drawn from fruits. Yes. But where is Cecily?
Oh, perhaps she followed us to the schools.
Mr. Worthing!
Mr. Worthing.
We did not expect you till Monday afternoon.
I've been sooner than expected. Dr. Chasuble, I hope you're well.
Mr. Worthing, I trust this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother!
More shameful debts and extravagance.
Dead? Dead? Your brother? What dead?
What a lesson for him. I trust he will profit by it.
Mr. Worthing. Mr. Worthing, may I offer you my sincerest condolences. You have at least the consolation of knowing that you were always the most caring and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Ernest! He had many faults, but this one was a sad blow.
Very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No. I got a telegram from the Grand Hotel's manager.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
As a man so let him read.
Oh, charity, Miss Prism, charity. None of us are perfect. Even I am susceptible to drafts from time to time. Will the interment take place here, Mr. Worthing?
No, he expressed a desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? That hardly points to any very serious state of mind at the end. Well, Mr. Worthing, you will at least not object to me making some mention of this tragic domestic affliction in my sermon on Sunday. You know, my sermon on the meaning of the manna in the wilderness can be adapted to any situation. Joyous, or as in the present case, very distressing. I have preached at confirmations, christenings, at harvest celebrations, on days of humiliation and at festal gatherings. No, the last time I preached it was in a cathedral in front of the Society for the Prevention of Discontent amongst the upper orders. The bishop who was present was very much struck by some of the analogies I drew.
You mentioned something about christenings. I suppose you christen all right. I mean, you are continuing in the christenings.
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in this parish. I have often spoken to the lower classes on the subject, but they don't seem to know what thrift is.
But Mr. Worthing, I must ask, is there any particular infant in whom you're interested? Your brother was, I believe, unmarried.
Oh, yes, yes.
People who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
But this is for no particular infants, dear Doctor. I'm particularly fond of children, there's no doubt about that. But I'd like to be christened for myself. This afternoon, if you have nothing else to do.
But Mr. Worthing, have you not been christened already?
I can't recall that.
Yes, but do you have any grave doubts on the subject?
I most certainly intend to have. For I don't want to offend you, Doctor. If you think that I'm too old.
Oh no, Mr. Worthing. The sprinkling and the immersion of adults is perfectly canonical practice.
The immersions?
You need have no apprehensions, Mr. Worthing. Sprinkling is all that's necessary, or I think advisable, given the weather. It's so changeable, is it not? When would you like the ceremony performed?
5:30.
Oh, well, that will do perfectly. I actually have a similar ceremony to perform at the time. A case of the twins that occurs in one of the outlying cottages of your very own estate, Mr. Worthing. Oh, poor Mr. Jenkins, the carter. He's a most hard-working man.
I don't think it much fun being christened amongst the other children. It's a bit childish. How about 5:45?
Admirably, Mr. Worthing. Well, I shall not intrude any longer upon this house of sorrow. I only beg you not be too bowed down by your grief. What seem to us as bitter trials are a blessing in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of a rather obvious kind.
Uncle Jack! Oh, I am so glad you're back. What horrid clothes you've got on? Do you go and change them?
Cecily!
Oh, child.
Jack, whatever is the matter? You look as if you had a toothache, and I have got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room right now? Your brother. Brother, Ernest. He arrived about half an hour ago.
That's absurd. I don't have a brother. my brother in the dining room? This is absurd. He can't possibly be there.
Good heavens! You! Brother John, I have come down from town to tell you that I am terribly sorry for all the trouble that I have caused, and that I intend on leading a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you're not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to shake his hand, and I think him coming down here quite disgraceful. He knows perfectly well why.
Do not say such things. There is some good in everyone. Ernest was just telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury. And surely there must be so much good in someone who is kind to an invalid and leaves the pleasures of London to sit by a bed of pain.
So he's been talking to you about Bunbury now, has he?
Yes, he's told me all about Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Well, I haven't talked to you about Bunbury or anything else of the sort. It's enough to drive one quite straight.
Yes, well, I must admit that all the fault is really on my end. But I must say, Brother John's coldness to me is peculiarly painful. It's just, I guess I was expecting a little more of an enthusiastic welcome. Especially considering that this is my first time here.
Uncle, if you do not shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me?
Never, never, never.
Fine! This shall be the last time I ever do it.
Oh, it is pleasant, is it not, to see such a perfect reunion? I think we shall leave the two brothers alone.
Cecily, you will come with us.
Of course, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is done.
You have done a beautiful action today, child.
We must not be premature in our judgments.
I feel so happy.
Algie, you young scoundrel! You have got to get out of this mess at once! I won't allow your Bunbury in here!
I have put Mr. Earnest's things in the room next to yours, sir. I suppose it is all right.
What?
Mr. Earnest's luggage, sir. I've unpacked it and put it in the room next to your own.
His luggage?
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dress case, 2 hat boxes, and a large lunching basket.
Yes, I'm afraid I won't be able to stay for more than a week this time.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. You see, Mr. Worthing has suddenly been called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I haven't been called back to town at all.
Yes, you have!
Really? I haven't heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasures in the smallest degree. Besides, Cecily is a darling.
You're not to talk of Miss Scotch like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You look perfectly absurd in them. Why on earth don't you go up and change? It is perfectly childish to be in mourning for someone who isn't actually dead, and rather staying with you in your house as a guest. I call it grotesque.
You're not staying in my house for more than a week, as a guest or anything else. In fact, you have to leave by the 4-5 train.
My dear Helen, I certainly shall not leave you so long as you are in mourning. It would be most unfriendly of me. Besides, you would be there for me if I were in mourning, I suppose. I should think it very unkind if you didn't.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes. Oh, but only if you don't take so long. I have never seen anyone take so long to dress. And such little result.
Well, it's better than always be nobody dressed as you are.
If I am occasionally a little overdressed, I always make up for it by being over-immensely educated.
That is ridiculous. Your conduct is a mere outrage. Your presence in my garden is absurd. However, you have got to make the 4-5 train, and I hope you have a pleasant journey back. This bunbury, as you call it, well, it hasn't been a great success.
Well, I think it has been a great success, and I will speak to Cecily again today before I make more plans for Bunbury. Oh, listen.
I nearly came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
Oh, no. He has come to order the dog cart for me.
Oh. Is he going to take you for a nice drive?
No. He's going to send me away.
Then we've got to part.
Yes. And very painful parting it is too.
It is always painful to part from people whom one has known a comparatively short time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from one whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking forward to staying. Yes. But, Cecily, I hope I shall not offend you if I say quite frankly and openly that you seem to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think that your frankness does you credit, Ernest. I do hope you will allow me to copy your remarks into my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? Oh, really, I keep anything to see it. May I?
Oh no! Couldn't possibly allow that. You see, it is simply a young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I hope you will order a copy. But pray, go on, Ernest. I delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. Do go on. I am quite ready for more.
Alright.
I must speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell cough.
Well, Cecily, ever since I have looked upon your wonderful and amazing beauty, I have dared to love you. Wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly, yes.
I do not think it can be right for you to tell me that you love me wildly,
Yes.
passionately,
Yes.
devotedly,
Yes.
hopelessly? Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Cecily!
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
Please don't break my jacket. I'm staying, thank you. You can tell the dog carts to come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir. Uncle Jack would be very annoyed if he knew you were staying until next week at the same hour.
But I don't care about what Jack thinks. I don't care about what anyone in the world thinks. I only care about you, Cecily. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
Of course, you silly
Sorry, we have?
Well, yes. It will be 3 months this Thursday.
Ah, yes, and when did we become engaged?
On the 14th of last March. Worn out by your complete ignorance of my existence. I determined to end the matter one way or another. And after a long struggle with myself, I decided to accept you on this dear spot. Yeah! And then the next day, I went and I bought this ring in your name.
Oh, yes.
And here is the bracelet with the true lovers knot that I promised you always to wear.
Did I buy you this? Oh, it is pretty, yes.
Yes, you have a wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given you for leading such a terrible life. And here is the box with all the dear letters that you wrote me.
My dearest Cecily, I have never written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I'm only forced to remember that I had to write every letter for you on your behalf. I wrote 3 times a week. And sometimes oftener.
Well, I keep hesitant to see them now.
No. I couldn't possibly allow that. It would make you far too conceited. The 3 you wrote me after I broke off our engagement. So beautiful. And so badly spelled. That even now I can't read them without crying a little.
Yes, but was our engagement ever really broken off?
Yes. On the 13th of last February. You may see the entry if you like. Today, I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better this way. The weather continues to be charming.
But why would you break off your engagement with me, Cecily? I don't understand. I mean, what had I done? I had done nothing. Why would you break off our engagement? Especially when the weather was so charming.
Well, it would hardly have been a very serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. But you must not worry. I forgave you before the week was out.
Oh, well then, you are an angel. Oh, but you won't break off our engagement again, will you?
Well, I could hardly break it off now that I've actually met you. Oh, besides, there's still the question of your name.
Ah, yes. My name.
Oh, you must not laugh at me, Ernest. But it has always been a girlish fantasy of mine to marry someone whose name is Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. And I, of course, pity any married woman who's not married to someone with the name Ernest.
Yes, but what if I had another name?
But what name?
Oh, it could be any name you like, really. Algernon. Yes.
Oh! Oh no, no, I don't like Algernon.
But why not? Algernon is a perfectly fine name, yes. It's a rather good name, actually. You know, half the people down the bankruptcy court are named Ernest, yes. But seriously, Cecily, you don't mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name were Algernon.
I might respect you. I might admire your character. But I am afraid I could never give you my undivided attention.
Well, then, Cecily, your rector here is, I suppose, practiced in all the ceremonials of the church.
Oh yes, Dr. Chasuble is a most learned man. He hasn't written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
Well, then I must see this Dr. Chasuble on a very important christening.
What?
I mean on a very important business, yes. I shan't be gone more for than half an hour.
Considering we have been engaged since the 14th of March, and I have only just now met you, I think it is rather hard of you to leave me for so long a time as 30 minutes. Couldn't you make it 20?
I shan't be long at all, Cecily.
An impetuous young man. Oh, I do so like his hair. Curls naturally, you know. I must enter his proposal into my diary.
A Miss Fairfax has just called to see Mr. Worthing on very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Isn't Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went over in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Pray ask the young lady to come here. Mr. Worthing is sure to be back soon. And I suppose you should bring some tea.
Yes,
Miss Fairfax. No doubt one of the good-natured old ladies involved in some philanthropic work in London with Uncle Jack. Who would like ladies involved in philanthropic work? It is so forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray, let me introduce myself to you. I am Miss Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew? What a very sweet name. Something tells me we are going to be great friends. I already like you more than I can say. And my first impressions on people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me so much after we have known each other such a comparatively short time. Pray, sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure.
You will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you?
If you wish.
Then that is quite settled then, isn't it?
I hope so.
Perhaps now would be a favorable opportunity for my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You have heard of Papa, I suppose?
I don't think so.
Outside of the family circle, I'm glad to say, Papa is entirely unknown. That, I think, is as it should be. The home seems to me to be the sphere of a man, and no doubt, once he begins to neglect his domestic duties, he becomes painfully impertinent. Does he not? And I don't like that. It makes a man so very attractive. Cecily, Mama, whose views on education are remarkably short, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. So would you mind my looking at you through my glasses?
Not at all, Gwendolyn. I am very fond of being looked at.
You are here on some short visit, I suppose.
Oh no, I live here.
Indeed. Your mother, no doubt, or some female relative of advanced years, resides here also.
No. I have no mother, nor in fact any relations.
Indeed.
No, you see, my guardian, along with Miss Prism, has the arduous task of taking care of me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I am Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh, it is strange Mr. Worthing never mentioned to me that he had a ward. How very secretive of him.
He grows more interesting hourly.
However, I'm not sure that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I am very fond of you, Cecily. you ever since I met you, but I am bound to state that now that I know you are Mr. Worthing's ward, the wish that you were, well, a little older than you seem, and not quite so alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak quite candidly...
Oh, pray do. I always feel that when one has something quite unpleasant to say, one should always be very candid.
Well, to speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. He is the very soul of truth and honor. Disloyalty would be as impossible for him as deception. But even men of the noblest possible moral character are susceptible to the physical charms of others. Modern, no less than ancient history, has provided us with numerous examples of what I refer to. If it were not so, indeed, history would be quite unreadable.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn, but did you say Mr. Earnest Worthing?
Yes.
Oh, you see, it is not Mr. Earnest Worthing who is my ward, my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Mr. Worthing never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I'm afraid they have not been on very good terms for a long time.
Ah, that accounts for it. And now that I think of it, I have never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. It would have been terrible if a cloud had come across a friendship like ours. Would it not? Of course, you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian?
Yes, quite sure.
Fact.
I am going to be his.
I beg your pardon?
My dearest Gwendolyn, there is no reason why I should make a secret of it to you. The country newspaper is sure to mention the fact next week that Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
I'm afraid there must be some slight error. For Mr. Worthing proposed to me yesterday afternoon. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post no later than Saturday.
No, you must be under some misconception. You see, Mr. Ernest Worthing proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
That is certainly very curious. For Mr. Worthing asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you wish to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read on the train. I am so sorry, dear Cecily, if I have caused you any possible disappointment. But I'm afraid I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can tell you, dearest Gwendolyn, if it were to cause you any physical or mental anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he clearly has changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has gotten himself entrapped into some foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my poor boy has gotten himself into, I will be sure not to reproach him with it after we are married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. At a time such as this, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you! This is no time for the wearing of the mask of shallow manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I am glad to say that I It is obvious our social spheres have been widely different.
Shall I lay tea here as usual?
Yes, as usual. Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh, yes, a great many. From the top of one of the hills, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties. I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
Yes, I suppose that is why you live in town.
Quite a well-kept garden, this is, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, yes. Flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London.
Personally, I don't understand how anyone manages to exist in the country. If anyone who is anyone ever does. The country always bores me to death.
This is what the newspapers refer to as agricultural depression. I believe the aristocracy are suffering from it greatly at present. It is almost an epidemic amongst them, I have been told. Tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you. Detestable girl, but I require tea.
Sugar?
No, sugar isn't fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, please. Few houses nowadays serve cake.
Hand back to Miss Fairfax.
You have put lots of sugar in my tea, and though I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature. But I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, there are no lengths to which I would not go!
From the moment I met you, I distrusted you. I felt you were false and deceptive. My first impressions on people are invariably right.
It appears to me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other similar calls of a similar nature to make in the neighborhood.
Ernest! My own Ernest!
Gwendolyn!
A moment. Are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To Cecily? Oh, I could have put a silly idea in your pretty little head.
Thank you. You may.
Oh.
I knew there must have been some mistake. But you see, the gentleman whose arm is now currently around your waist is not Mr. Ernest Worthing. No, you see, this is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack! Oh, lady over there.
To what young lady over where? Oh, good heavens, Gwendolyn!
Yes, to good heavens, Gwendolyn. I mean Gwendolyn.
No. Ew. What could have put such a pretty idea in your silly little head?
Thank you. Me? I felt there was some slight error. The man who is currently embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief! Oh! Are you called Algernon?
Yeah, I got confidant.
Is your name ready, Jack?
I can deny it if I like. I can deny anything if I like. But it has been Jack for many years.
A gross deception has been practiced on us both.
My poor wounded Cecily. You will always call me sister, won't you?
There is just one question I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian.
An excellent idea. Mr. Worthing, there is one question we would like to be allowed to put before you. Where is your brother Ernest?
Gwendolyn?
Both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest. So it is a matter of some importance for both of us to know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolyn? Cecily? It pains me very much to be forced to speak the truth. This is the first time in my life I've been reduced to such a disposition. I'm quite inexperienced with the things of the sort. But the fact is, I haven't got a brother. I never have one. And I most certainly don't intend on having one in the future.
No brother at all.
None.
Have you never a brother of any kind?
Never. Not of any kind.
It seems, dear Cecily, that neither of us are engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for you to find yourself in.
Come, let us go into the house. They will hardly venture to follow after us.
No, there. Men are so cowardly, aren't they?
Those ghastly state of things which you call bunburying, I suppose.
Yes, and a very wonderful Bunbury it has been as well. In fact, it has been the most wonderful Bunbury I've ever had in my life.
I have no right to Bunbury here.
That is absurd. One has the right to Bunbury wherever one chooses. Any serious Bunburist knows that.
Serious Bunburist? Oh, good heavens.
Well, one must be serious about something in life if one is to have any amusement. I happen to be serious about Bunbury, yes. What on earth you're serious about, I haven't the remotest idea. Probably everything I should fancy. You have such an absolute trivial nature.
Well, the only small satisfaction that I have with the whole wretched business of Bunbury is that he's quite exploded. You won't be able to go down to the country so often as you used to, and I don't think that is all a bad thing.
Well, your brother's looking a little bit off color, isn't he, Jack? You won't be able to come up to London quite as often as your wicked custom was. And not a bad thing either.
As for your conduct, I don't like you taking in a sweet, stand-up, innocent child like Miss Corrigan. I think you're quite inexcusable, to say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
Well, I can see no possible defense at all for you deceiving a well-trained, brilliant, perfect young lady like Miss Fairfax. To say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
Well, I wanted to be married to Gwendolyn. That is all. You see, I love her.
Really? Well, I wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her. Yes.
There's no chance of you marrying Miss Cardew.
Well, I can see no likelihood of you and Miss Fairfax ever being united.
That's no business of yours.
Well, if it was any business of mine, I wouldn't talk about it. You see, it is very vulgar to talk about one's own business. Only people like stockbrokers ever do that. And then merely at dinner parties.
How can you sit there, calmly eating muffins, when we're in this horrible trouble? I can't make it out. You seem to me to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I certainly cannot eat muffins in an agitated manner! The butter would probably get all over my house. When one eats muffins, one should eat them quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
Well, I say it's perfectly heartless of you at all to eat muffins under the circumstances.
My dear fellow, when I am in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I am in great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately would tell you, I refuse everything except eat and drink. In this current moment, I am unhappy.
Yes, but there's no reason why you should eat them all in that greedy manner.
Oh, Jack! You know, I really wish you would just have tea cake instead. I don't like tea cake.
Good heavens, suppose a man may be allowed to eat his own muffins in his own garden.
But you have just said that it was perfectly heartless.
Yes, perfectly heartless of you, under the circumstances. That's a very different thing.
Yes. Muffins remain the same.
Algie, I wish you'd go.
I haven't had my dinner yet. I never go anywhere without having my dinner first.
Better. See, I made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble this morning to be christened myself at 6:15, and I will naturally take the name of Earnest. Gwendolyn would wish it. Besides, I have a perfect right to be christened if I'd like. There's no record of me being christened by anyone, and I think it very probable that I never was. So does Dr. Chasuble. Your case, however, is entirely different. You have been christened already.
Yes, but I haven't been christened for years.
But you have been christened. That's the important thing.
Quite so. So I know that my constitution can stand it. You, however, if you are not so entirely sure about you ever having been christened, I must say, I think it rather dangerous you're venturing on it now. You can have hardly forgotten that someone very closely connected to you was carried off this week in Paris by a severe chill.
But I thought you said that severe chill was not hereditary, or anything else like that.
Oh, it used to be, I know, but I daren't say it is now. Science is always making wonderful improvements on things. Jack, you are at the muffins again. I really wish you would have tea cake instead.
But I hate tea cake!
Well, then why on earth do you offer it up to your guests?
I don't know.
What ideas of hospitality you have?
Why don't you just go? I don't want you here. Now, take your bags and luggage and scurry on over down to London.
But I haven't finished my tea yet. Besides, there's still one muffin left.
They don't seem to notice us. Could you cough?
But I haven't got a cough.
They are looking at us. What effrontery.
They are approaching. How forward of them.
Come, let us preserve a dignified silence.
Certainly. It is the only thing to do now.
Dignified silence is creating an unpleasant effect.
A most distasteful one.
But we will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, I have something very particular that I must ask you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolyn, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrief, there is just one thing I would like to ask you. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
Well, so that I might have the pleasure of meeting you, Cousin Cecily.
That certainly seems the most satisfactory answer.
Yes, dear, if you can believe him.
I don't. But that does not affect the wonderful beauty of his words.
True. In matters of great importance, it is style, not sincerity, that is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you give to me for pretending to have a brother? Was it so that you could come up to town as often as you liked to see me?
Any doubt, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest doubts on the subject. But I intend to crush them. Now is not the time for German skepticism. Both of their explanations seem to be quite satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing. His seems to have the stamp of truth upon it.
I am certainly satisfied with Mr. Moncrief's answer. For his voice alone inspires one with absolute credulity.
So you think we should forgive them?
Yes! I mean, no.
You are right. There are principles at stake which one cannot forfeit. But which one of us would be the one to tell them? The task is not a pleasant one.
Couldn't we do it together?
An admirable idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as someone else. Will you take the time from me?
Certainly. Your Christian names still form an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our Christian names? Is that all? But if you're going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you are prepared to do this terrible thing.
I am.
For me, you are willing to face this fearful ordeal?
Yeah,
How absurd of us to talk of the equality of the sexes. Where self-sacrifice is concerned, men are infinitely beyond us.
They have moments of physical courage of which we women know absolutely nothing. Darling! Lady Bracknell. Gwendolyn, what does this mean?
Merely that I am engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma. Come here. Sit down.
Sit down immediately. Hesitation of any kind is a sign of mental decay in the young and of physical weakness in the old. A pride
with the means of a small coin. I followed her by luggage train at once. Her unhappy father is, I am pleased to say, under the impression that she's attending a more than lengthy lecture at the University Extension School on the influence of a permanent income on thought. I do not wish to undeceive him. Indeed, I would never undeceive him on any question. I would consider it wrong. But you will no doubt understand that all communication between you and my daughter must cease from this moment immediately. On this point, as on all points, I am firm.
But Lady Bracknell, I'm engaged to Gwendolyn.
You are nothing of the kind, sir. And now, as regards Algernon. Algernon!
Ah, yes, Aunt Augusta.
May I ask whether it is in this house that your poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, resides?
Oh, no. Bunbury doesn't reside here. No, he is elsewhere at present, yes. Actually, you know what? Bunbury is dead. Yes.
Oh, when did Mr. Bunbury die? His death must have been extremely sudden.
Oh, yes, I killed him this afternoon. Bunbury died this afternoon, yes.
And what did Mr. Bunbury die of?
Oh, yes, he was quite exploded.
Was he the victim of a revolutionary outrage? I was not aware that he was interested in social legislation. If so, he's well punished for his morbidity.
No, Aunt Augusta, what I actually mean is, he was found out. Yes, you see, the doctors found out that he couldn't live anymore. Yes. So, Bunbury died. Yes.
He must have had great confidence in the opinion of his physician. Well, I'm glad that he made up his mind at the last to some definite course of action and acted under proper medical advice. And now that we've gotten rid of this Mr. Bunbury, Mr. Worthing, who is that young person whose hand my nephew is holding in what seems to me a very unnecessary manner?
Well, this young person, Lady Bracknell, is Miss Carr. My ward.
Yes, I am engaged to be married to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon?
Mr. Moncrief and I are engaged to be
I do not know if there's any... I do not know if there's anything peculiarly exciting in this particular part of Hertfordshire, but the number of engagements that go on seem to me to be above the proper average statistics have laid down for our guidance. I'm sure some preliminary inquiry on my part would not be out of place. Mr. Wilde, is Miss Cardew at all connected to any of the larger railway stations in London? I merely desire information. As of yesterday, I was not aware that there were any families or persons whose origin was terminus.
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, Gervais Park, Dorking, Sherry, and Sporriman, Berkshire NV.
3 addresses always inspire confidence, especially in case. But what proof have I of their authenticity?
Well, I have preserved the court guides of the period, Lady Bracknell. They're open to your inspection.
I have known strange errors in that publication.
Miss Cardew's family solicitors are Messrs. Markby, and Markby.
A firm of the very highest position in this profession. Indeed, I have been told that one of them, Mr. Markby, is occasionally seen at dinner parties. So far, I am satisfied.
I also have in my possession, if you could please hear, the certificates of Miss Cardew's birthday, baptism, whooping cough, registration, vaccination, and the confirmation of the measles, both in the English and German variety.
Ah, a life crowded with incident, I see. Perhaps somewhat too exciting for a young girl. I myself am not in favor of premature experiences. Gwendolyn, the time has come for our departure. We have not a moment to lose. As a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I'd better ask if Miss Cardew has any little fortune.
Little? Oh, only about £130,000 in the funds. But that is all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell. So pleased to have seen you.
A moment, Mr. Worthing. £150,000! And in the funds. Miss Cardew seems a really attractive young girl, now that I know it. Few girls of the present day have any really solid qualities. Any of the qualities that last and improve with time. I live, we regret to say, in an age of surfaces. Come here, dear. Pretty child. Your dress is sadly simple. And your hair seems almost as nature might permit. But we can soon alter that. A thoroughly experienced French maid can produce a really marvelous result in a very brief space of time. I remember recommending one to young Lady Lancet, and after 3 months, her own husband did not know her.
And after 6 months, nobody knew her.
Kindly turn around, sweet child. No, the side view is what I want. Yes, quite as I suspected. There are distinct social possibilities in your profile. The chin a little higher here. Chin, style largely depends on the way the chin is worn. They are worn quite high. Algernon?
Yes.
There are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew's profile.
Yes, Cecily is the sweetest, prettiest girl ever. But I don't care 2 pence about social possibilities.
Don't speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. My dear, I'm sure you are quite aware that Algernon has nothing but his debt to pay for. But I myself am not in favor of mercenary marriage. When I met Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of any kind, but I never dreamt of letting that stand in my way. Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Oh, thank you, Aunt Augusta. Yes.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
Cecily, you may kiss me.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
You may also address me as Aunt Augusta in the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
I think the marriage had better take place quite quickly. To speak quite frankly, I am not in favor of long engagements. They always give each other the opportunity of finding out each other's character before marriage, which I think is never advisable.
Pray, excuse me for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but Miss Cardew is my ward, and she cannot marry without my consent until she comes of age. And that consent I absolutely decline to give.
Upon what grounds? Algernon is an extremely, I may even say ostentatiously, eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks everything. What more can one desire?
It pains me so much, Lady Bracknell, but I believe your nephew of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon? Impossible. He's an Oxonian.
The matter is quite solved then. You see, yesterday afternoon when I was in London on important business of romance, he obtained admission to my house by means of false pretense of being my brother. He then devoured, I've just been told by my butler, 1 whole bottle of my puree jeté, Brut 89, a wine I specially reserved for myself. Then, continuing in his disgraceful demise, alienated the affections of my only ward. Then subsequently stayed for tea and devoured every single muffin. What makes his conduct all the more heartless is that I distinctly told him yesterday afternoon that I never had a brother, and I most certainly don't intend on having one in the future.
After careful consideration, I have decided to entirely overlook my nephew's conduct to you.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. It's very kind of you, but my own decision is unalterable. I still decline to give my consent.
Your consent? Jack, how old are you, dear?
Well, I'm really only 18, but I always admit to 21 at dinner parties.
You are quite right in doing so. No woman should ever be quite accurate about their age. They look so calculating. 18, but admitting to 21 and even more. Well, it will not be very long before you are of age, and free from the restraints of duty. So I do not think your guardian's consent is after all a matter of any importance.
Excuse me for interrupting you again, Lady Bracknell, but it's only fair to tell you that according to her grandfather's will, she doesn't come of age until 35.
I do not think that explains. London society is full of ladies of the very highest birth, who of their own free choice have remained 35 for years. Lady Dumbledore is an instance in the book. Why, I remember that she's been 35 ever since she arrived at the age of 40. Many years ago now. I do not think Miss Crosby would be any less attractive at the age you mentioned than she is now. There would be a large accumulation of property.
Algie, could you wait for me until I was 35?
I mean, yes, you know.
Yes, I felt so instinctively. But I hated waiting 5 minutes for anybody. I'm not a punctual person myself, but I do like it in others. And waiting for so long, even to be married, is quite out of the question.
Well, what do you propose we do?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrief. I don't know.
Mr. Wilde, as necessity states positively that she cannot wait till she is 35, a remark I am bound to say seems to show a somewhat impatient nature, I would kindly ask you to reconsider your decision.
I'm afraid the matter is entirely in your own hands, Lady Bracknell. See, the moment you consent to my marriage with Gwendolyn, I'll most gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
You know very well that what you propose is entirely out of the question.
Ah, then a compassionate celibacy is all any of us can look forward to.
That is not the destiny I propose for Gwendolyn. Algernon, of course, can choose for himself. Come, dear, we have missed 5, if not 6 trains. To miss any more would expose us to comment on the platform.
Ah, Mr. Worthing, everything is quite ready for the christenings.
The christening, sir! Is that not somewhat premature?
Both of these men have expressed a very intense desire for immediate baptism.
At their age, the idea is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. Lord Bracknell would be highly displeased if he knew that this was the way in which you wasted your time and money.
Am I to understand that there are to be no baptisms today?
I don't think that as things are, it will be of much practical value to either of us, Dr. Chasuble.
Oh, I am grieved to hear such sentiments from you, Mr. Worthing. You know, they savor of the heretical views of the Anabaptists. I have refuted their views in four of my unpublished sermons. Well, as the particular mood of this room seems one that is peculiarly secular, I shall bid you adieu. Miss Prism is waiting for me in the vestry, I am told.
Miss Prism, did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, Lady Bracknell. I am on my way to visit her now.
Pray, allow me to detain you for a moment. This may be of vital importance to Lord Bracknell and myself. Is this Miss Prism a lady of repellent aspect, remotely connected to education?
Miss Prism is the very picture of respectability and the most cultivated of ladies.
It is obviously the same person. What position does she hold in your household?
Oh, I am a celibate, madam.
Lady Bracknell, Miss Prism has been for the last 3 years Miss Cecily's esteemed governess and valued companion.
Despite of what I hear of her, I must see her immediately. Let her be sent for.
Hark! She approaches. She is nigh.
I was told you awaited me in the vestry, dear Canon. I've been waiting for you there for an hour and 3/4.
Prism! Come here, Prism! Prism! Where is that baby? 28 years ago, you left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104, Upper Bracknell Street, in charge of a perambulator containing a baby of the male sex. You never returned. After the lengthy investigation of the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was found by itself in a remote corner of Bayswater. It contained the manuscript of a 3-volume novel of more than revolting sentimentality. But the baby was not there. Prism, where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame that I do not know. I only wish that I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day that you mentioned, a morning that will forever be branded in my memory, I prepared as usual to take the baby out of the perambulator. I had with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag in which I intended to place a manuscript of a work of fiction that I had written in my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction for which I can never forgive myself, I placed the baby in the handbag and the manuscript in the bassinet.
Where did you deposit this handbag that contained an infant?
Do not ask me, Mr. Wilde.
Miss Prism, this is a matter of no small importance to me. I insist on knowing where you deposited this handbag.
In the cloakroom of one of the larger railway stations in London.
What railway station?
Victoria.
Thou must retire to my room at once. Gwendolyn, wait for me here.
If you are not too long about it,
That way.
I will wait for you all my life.
What do you suppose this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even suspect, Dr. Chandler. I need hardly remind you that in houses of the very highest position, strange coincidences do not occur. They are hardly considered the thing.
Your guardian is a very emotional nature.
It sounds as if he was having an argument. I dislike arguments of any kind. They are always vulgar and often unconvincing.
It has stopped now.
I wish you would come to some definite conclusion.
The suspense is terrible. I hope it will last.
Now, examine this carefully before you speak. happiness of more than one person depends on your answer.
It seems to be mine. Yes, here's the injury received from the upsetting of Gow Street omnibus. An incident that happened in younger and happier days. And here on the lining is the stain it received from the explosion of a temperance beverage, an incident that occurred in Leamington. And here on the look are my initials. I had forgotten that in an extravagant mood I had them placed there. The bag is undoubtedly mine. I'm delighted to have it so unexpectedly restored to me. It has been quite an inconvenience being without it all these years.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than just a handbag. You see, I was the baby you placed inside it.
You?
Yes. Mother!
Mr. Married!
Unmarried? I do not deny that is a serious blow. But after all, who has the right to cast a stone against one who has suffered? Cannot the act of repentance wipe out the act of folly? Most to be one law for man and another for woman. Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there's been some error. The woman who can tell you who you really are is over there.
Lady Bracknell? I hate to seem inquisitive, but could you inform me of who I am?
I'm afraid, Mr. Worthing, that the news I have to give you will not altogether please you. You are the son of my dear sister, Mrs. Moncrief, and consequently Algernon's elder brother.
What? Algernon's elder brother? I always knew I had a younger brother. I always said I had one, and you doubted I ever had a younger brother, Cecily. Dr. Chasuble, my unfortunate younger brother. Miss Prism, my unfortunate younger brother. Gwendolyn, my unfortunate younger brother. Oh, out you young scoundrel! You know, you had better treat me with more respect in the future. You haven't behaved to me like a brother in your entire life.
Yes, well, I was out of practice.
I own one. But what own are you, now that you have become someone else?
Oh, I've quite forgotten about that. You'd better clear that up. Lady Bracknell, at the time I had been placed in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Every luxury that money could buy, including christenings, had been lavished on you by your fond and doting parents.
And I was christened. But what is my Christian name?
Being the elder son, you were naturally christened after your father.
And what was his Christian name?
I cannot at the present moment recall what the general's Christian name was, but I have no doubt he had one. He was an eccentric, I admit, but only in later years, and that was the result of marriage and the Indian climate and indigestion and things of that kind.
Algy, can you recollect his father's Christian name?
Sorry, old boy, but we were barely on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
I suppose the army lists of the time period.
The general was essentially a man of peace, but that was not in his domestic life. But I'm sure that his name would appear in any military directory.
Ah. I should have studied these in my younger days. M Generals, there we are. Madam, Max Blom, Magley. What ghastly names they have. Markby, Migsby, Mobbs, Moncrief, here we are. Lieutenant 1840, Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel, General 1869, Christian names. Earnest John. man to know that all his life he's been telling nothing but the truth.
I can. Well, I'm sure you are bound to change.
Gwendolyn.
Letitia.
Frederick, at last!
Cecily, yes.
Gwendolyn!
My nephew, you seem to be displaying signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Aunt Augusta. This is the first time in my life I've realized the importance of being earnest.
Ah,